Hello, and thank you for joining me for another church visit. This is the extraordinary little church at Llandeloy in Pembrokeshire, and it's in the care of the Friends of Friendless Churches. It was ruined and then rebuilt, not in the Victorian period for a change, but in the 1920s. The Thomas family of Treheil wanted to bring it back into use, and did so with the help of the hugely talented arts and crafts architect John Coates Carter, who didn't charge for his work. He'd actually retired when he took this project on. The result is very atmospheric and idiosyncratic. Part of the medieval rood stair still existed, and an impressive rood screen was created, accessed from the pulpit. This was inspired by the few remaining Welsh rood screens and was intended as a memorial, as was the entire project, to the son of the late Theophilus Thomas and his wife Edith Thomas of Treheil. Lionel George Theophilus Thomas was a second lieutenant in the 5th Battalion, the Welsh Regiment, and was killed in the Third Battle of Ypres in September 1917. He'd been sent to the front the previous December. He was only 19 years of age when he died. His father had died in 1911 and is remembered by this window, paid for by Lionel's sister. Coates Carter turned a former tight skew passage into a transept, acting as a side chapel. A better use of space, but destroying the medieval ground plan. The nave is an intimate space. Lighting is by oil lamp. Access to the chancel is through the rood screen, but it's a steep climb. The chancel, rather long and bare and with a less mysterious feeling than the nave, clearly presented an unusual difficulty: the presence of 19th century burials in chest tombs. To get round this, the floor was raised and the chest tomb slabs were incorporated into the floor as paving. A similar tomb at nearby Mathry shows what the original would have looked like. A monument to a former inhabitant of Treheil is mounted at an oddly low position on the north wall of the chancel. The altar is simple and made of local materials, with an arts and crafts reredos painted by the architect himself. The view back towards the nave reveals the chancel arch, with a squint and holes, perhaps once housing timbers from the original screen, though it's hard to see how. The south wall was in a line with the end of this wall, and the only remaining piece of it is the wall that separates the chancel from the vestry. The walls of the ruin had been reduced to a very low level, and the bellcot was leaning precariously. These were reconstructed as simply as possible, with an emphasis on the vernacular, with dressed stone kept to a bare minimum and no plaster. Unfortunately, the walls are extremely damp, especially on the south side. The medieval windows had probably been replaced and enlarged in the 18th century, and they were recreated in a variety of sizes and shapes, but the very tiny west window had survived. The glass is mostly from the rebuilding period or shortly after, including this 1930s window showing Dorcas, the church as rebuilt, and the church at Llanreithan, but there's some later glass by Celtic Studios. The vision of the architect and the family that commissioned this church was bold: to turn a miserable ruin into a revived place of worship. It didn't last a century before it was redundant, and the excellent Friends of Friendless Churches have saved it, and it's open daily. It's evocative of a medieval church, but it's not a strictly accurate rebuilding. It's low and dark and moving in its simplicity. It's at one with its location, but it's also damp and more than a little gloomy. Some of the spaces work better than others. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. And as always, thank you for watching.